UFC Noche, more like UFC shit show, am I right, guys? Almost 100 days out, and everything we knew about the card has just been thrown in the garbage. I was already halfway done with a big, long video talking about UFC 320 and UFC Noche because they were the same thing, and then Saturday night, Blanchfield vs. Barber gets cancelled, UFC Noche gets moved, and everything falls apart. This was my 9/11. The arena that was supposed to house the UFC 320 Noche extravaganza looks like this, so I can totally understand why they aren't going to that venue. It was supposed to be completed in September of 2024, then February 2025, then April 2025, and now it's canceled indefinitely. The first of many thoughts that came to mind when I first heard this was, I thought Mexicans were good at construction, so I did what any run-of-the-mill guy would do. Grok, is this real? What can I say? That guy always has the answers. Now, the events have been split up. UFC 320 is unannounced and has been moved back, while UFC Noche is still taking place on the 13th of September in San Antonio, Texas. More Mexicans live there than Guadalajara anyway, so it'll be a good fit. Better than having the event in Vegas for sure, but they still could have held the event in the CDMX arena in Mexico City. That's where they had Moreno Royval 2. Our presumed main event was going to be Alexander Volkanovski defending his featherweight title against Yair Rodriguez. Volkanovski versus Rodriguez 2 is a fine fight on paper. You hear those two names together and maybe you think about their first fight, you think about dynamic striking. That was kind of fun, right? But it is the completely wrong fight to make. Especially now that we don't need to have a big Mexican presence at UFC 320. I'm assuming Volk is probably staying on the card, but if they still give that fight to Yair, ooh, I'm gonna get angry. Yair Rodriguez is 1-1 since his last title shot, and he beat an aging Patricio Pitbull, who I don't even think is gonna make it to the UFC top 10. I think he probably struggles with the Dan Ige, Yusuf Zalals, and Josh Emmets of the world. Before that, he lost to Brian Ortega, who he only got a fluke win against last time they fought. Brian fucking blew out his knee jumping before the fight started, and he still couldn't beat him. That's the same Brian that got 30-27 by Diego Lopez. You know, MMA math doesn't always quite work out. But it seems like there are clear levels within the UFC featherweight division right now, and Yair shouldn't be anywhere near a title. At most, the UFC giving him Diego Lopez in a title eliminator would be very generous. That's the fight that should be made. It has heat. They both have roots in Mexico. I think they were calling each other slurs at the press conference. That's fun. UFC Noche really just should have always been a fight night. You know, like how it was for Shevchenko versus Grasso 2. That wasn't a pay-per-view. Yair facing off against Diego Lopez is the best possible move for the main event. Then you do a Grasso-Blanchfield co-main. Everything works out just fine. And more importantly, you give Volk something better to do. I very much dislike Movsar Evloev personally. I think he's a bit weird. His fight style isn't phenomenal either. When it was a big part of the MMA discussion for a bit there, he was one of the main offenders of trying to game the system by playing selective grab-ass with the canvas. Right here, Mr. Evloev, is the octagon you'll be fighting in later tonight. Brand new canvas, made just for this event. Yes, brother, I like them fresh, brother. Ige, Lopez, Allen, Sterling is a far better run than simply Pitbull. Not even the fun Pitbull either, the lame one. Even if all those fights were kind of competitive, kind of close, he's giving up rounds here and there, I think it is still the best option. Movsar isn't even a clear number one contender because there isn't one. All of the good top-tier featherweights are inactive, or they left for lightweight. Topuria, Holloway, and Ortega could have fought down against other people by now, because that's how you build new contenders, but they left, so the division has to figure itself out. Arnold Allen has been injured. No one wants to fight Aljamain Sterling, so Movsar, Gene Silva, Lerone Murphy, and Yair are the only ones coming off of notable wins. Ironically, it's a Mexican standoff. A month or so ago, we thought that Movsar was going to be fighting Aaron Pico in his UFC debut, and then that fizzled out, but with every passing day, that fight seems more and more likely. An Ali Abdulaziz masterclass in doubling your money, just going all in on blacks. I mean black. I like his chances against both, but Volk really should be fighting Movsar. At least it's fresh. Another piece of today's discussion, why were they going to have a pay-per-view happening on the same date and at the same time as Canelo versus Crawford? I am a boxing casual. I watch a handful of events every year. I could put some names to faces, but I couldn't really tell you their styles of boxing. I couldn't tell you what they're good at. From what I know, this is a pretty big fight for boxing fans that they've wanted for a long time. And they were going to have it on the same fucking night, happening at the same fucking time, and was almost promoted by the same fucking guy. Serious conflict of interest on Dana White's part, trying to build up and promote two massive events at the same time. How would Dana even fully commit himself to Oh, he wouldn't. The UFC would just run on autopilot for a couple weeks. Hunter Campbell would run the show. I'm always weary of that Hunter Campbell fellow, you know, he has a little bit of a weird face. In the 18th century, he'd probably try and sell me some sort of snake oil. He just has that kind of vibe. I haven't really heard enough from him to make a real assessment. For all we know, he could be worse than Dana. He could be like Greasy Don, where he doesn't even have a favorite fight. But everything worked out because the dates have been moved around, and Dana White has, once again, been booted from boxing. He's just begging the Turkey Man, please, I want to promote some badass fights. And the Turkey Man is frantically trying to shake him off. Dana's clinging onto his leg like daddy's going for work. I just can't really figure out the reason why they would double book themselves here. Because Canelo is obviously a bigger Mexican star than fucking Yair Rodriguez. Most Mexican MMA fans I've talked with don't even like him. He's just a yappy Chihuahua bitch from Chihuahua, Mexico. That's his gimmick. He shows up, puts on a fun fight once every year and a half, bitches in the media, and then expects everything to be handed to him. The UFC was going to get pulverized by boxing. Remember when Canelo had to wait for Masvidal versus Diaz to wrap up? Because they were two bona fide pay-per-view stars with a story and a made-up belt? It would have been the opposite. I love Volkanovski, but I just don't know if he's quite a pay-per-view level star. I don't know if he has real star power. That's not really his strong suit. He's more of a relatable guy. To be a big pay-per-view star, you have to be an attraction, an anomaly. And Yair Rodriguez brings fuck all. So they would have been the ones waiting. UFC Noche is still a confusing mess, and with just over 3 months until the supposed date of the event, things could work themselves out, but UFC 320 is still at risk of being horrendous if they don't sub out Yair Rodriguez. Let me know your thoughts on UFC Noche and UFC 320, as well as their many problems in the comments section below. Shout out to Shauna, Proletarian, Gothic, and Lambslayer for being vampiric enjoyers. You too can get your name read out at the ends of videos by becoming a member today just like them. Like, comment, and subscribe for more MMA content. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't put all your eggs in the Mexican basket, and have a good time.